Hello, it's me, your close personal friend, youtube.com/mootroidXproductions. In case you haven't heard, I got my dream job. Mega commissioned me for a short stop-motion video. I am ecstatic. I could not be happier. This is the highlight of my career, and my heart is bursting with excitement. So now, I'm going to show you the entire pre-production process. This is what I do instead of having friends. This video is not sponsored by Mega. My opinions and views are my own, and they do not reflect that of the company. I'm literally just some guy. Okay, so first I'm going to add some weathering to all the figures. There's a couple steps for each figure here. I'm going to start with blackwashing. This isn't as problematic as whitewashing because there's a difference in the power dynamic. I'm mixing black acrylic paint with water until it's all runny, then I'm smearing it all over the figures, and finally I'm using a paper towel to gently wipe it off. The black stays in the seams and the cracks, and it helps all the sculpted details stand out better. You can buy ready-made wash, which is really nice because all you have to do is drip it onto the figures and gravity will do the rest. But I'm just a humble proletarian who's never bothered to do any research on painting miniatures. I am straight raw dogging this entire process. Since the Elite is gold, I'm not using black. Instead, I'm using a medium brown. Generally, it's best to use a darker version of the base color. In hindsight, I should have used a dark blue for Spartan Stone. The next step is dry brushing. You dip a dry brush in the tiniest bit of silver, then scrape the brush over any protruding edges meant to look like metal. This adds some realism because whenever metal has been painted over and it scratches, a tiny bit of silver shows through. For instance, if you drop a stop-motion set from the sky below on your dad's Porsche, it'll scratch off the red paint and show the silver underneath. Also, I know it's technically pronounced Porsche, but I refuse to say it like that. It's kind of like Les Mis in that if you say Les Miserables, you sound like a pretentious tool. Also, I refuse to acknowledge the French. Anyway, dry brushing also has the benefit of helping figures' edges stand out from everything else, which is really helpful for readability when the entire environment is dark. I like to watch movies or TV shows when I do hands-on work like this. Here I'm watching the Netflix adaptation of Resident Evil. It was bad. Except for Wesker. I liked Wesker, he was funny.
Were they listening?
Oh my god. Unlimited breadsticks. Are you seeing this?
Imagine if Mega made Resident Evil sets. That would be wonderful. All I want in life is to hold Leon S. Kennedy in my hands and tell him I love him. My lack of research came back to haunt me when I started using the silver. I'm using Tester's oil paint, which, as it turns out, doesn't dry properly when you put it over acrylic paint. Every time I handled these figures, I got some silver residue on my hands, but I still love how this looks. I love it so much that the power went to my head and I went completely overboard on the hunters. Like, it looks like I stuck them in the toaster. My dog is terrified of the toaster, by the way. If I want a bagel, it's full-on panic mode. Anyway, when it comes to dry brushing, I used a different color for the Elite again. Instead of silver, I used gold because when gold paint scratches off gold metal, you can see the gold metal underneath the gold paint, and it looks like gold on gold, which ultimately is gold. Yeah, it's great, love it. It's pure gold. Yeah, this Elite is one of my favorite figures Mega has ever produced. Okay, now let's look at these things side by side. I'm actually pretty bad at painting, which means I'm really good at making things look like they've been ruined on purpose. If you're going for realism, then you absolutely have to add some weathering, because after all, there is no such thing as an existence without pain. Now you can trick weak-minded viewers into thinking it's a real person. In fact, I bet some of you thought this was just a real person standing next to a life-size replica of himself, but it's not. It's just, it's plastic, it's fake, it's a fake guy. You can tell because of the hands. Man, I truly love Mega figures. They're my favorite thing to animate. The articulation is excellent, they're light enough for all kinds of wild action scenes, and they're small enough that I can build large-scale settings without taking over an entire house. I can build an entire city on top of a table. Alright, now it's time to lay out the background. So first, I lay out all my terrain base plates. These are absolutely wonderful. They fill up space quickly and they're kind of jagged and uneven, so they look very naturalistic despite being covered in geometrically precise grids of circular studs. I have to use some mismatched colors, and I also have to fill in the gaps with some smaller plates. I've been collecting these plates for many, many years now. You can actually see my collection growing through my older videos. I used every single one I had in Triple Takedown. All 4 of them. Also, if you look closely, you can see the blood splatter from when Master Chief shot the banished prototype.
Hasta luego.
Blood splatter. Spatter?
Blood spatter.
Splatter.
Spatter.
Splatter. I say splatter. I don't like the word
They're
spatter.
two different words.
They are. Squirt. Blood squirt. Blood splatter. I should really wash that off sometime, but washing off the blood won't erase what happened. Some stains are permanent. Some scars never fade. Mega sent me a fat bounty of smaller tan plates that I can use to stick all these bigger ones together, which really helps to blend the different colors. They also sent me a bunch of bricks and slopes, which I used to add some variety to the horizon. And finally, they gave me a giant pile of rocks and foliage so I... Wait. Hang on.
Foliage.
Alright. Yeah, so when I was a kid, I had books instead of friends. I would read new words but never hear them pronounced, so often I would mispronounce them in front of people and sound like an idiot. So I make a habit of checking pronunciations if I ever second-guess myself. I mean, I don't want to sound like my head is full of maggots or something. Anyway, they gave me a pile of rocks and foliage so I could add all these little spots of color. That'll keep it from looking like an endless, homogeneous expanse of tan and beige, stretching infinitely in all directions, a liminal hellscape of nothingness. In addition to the stash of tanks and set-building pieces, Mega also sent me this absolute treasure trove of effects parts for explosions and things. Look at all that. This is exactly what I needed. This is fantastic. So recently, my cousins were visiting from out of town, and they brought their 2-year-old kid, and his birthday coincided with their visit. One of the presents that we got him was this sort of squishy, stretchy Batman toy. And when he opened it, the first thing he shouted was, "Squishy Batman, I love you." And we all laughed at his childlike brand loyalty and, you know, love for the product. Mega Construct's flame effects, I love you. Building backgrounds is probably my least favorite part of animation. It's fun, yes, but I'd rather be doing the animation part of animation. To me, backgrounds are really just a means to an end, but you can see that becoming an issue in Banished Prototype. Like, there's some cool fighting going on here, but the background is pretty uninteresting and sometimes things get a little muddy. I was gonna take the same approach here by filling in the edges with a bunch of prefabricated structures, but that looks like trash, just pure garbage. So I need to start thinking about the setting as part of the visual design of the film. I took it to the extreme in Red Gauntlet, and now I'm bringing those two design philosophies to a halfway point. Naturalistic, but still stylish. I am in love with that red sky. I think this might be my trademark from now on. You know, as they say, red at night. Sailors are relieved because, you know, it usually predicts fair weather, which is, you know, optimal sailing conditions. I actually don't know why that is. I think it has something to do with barometric pressure, maybe something to do with, like, the gases. And so I moved my entire set to the other half of the basement, where I shot The Last Colony Part 2 and Pexachu vs. Godzilla. There's more open space here, so that let me set up all these frames and hang up a giant hunk of red cloth. I also hid some lights under the table and pointed them up at the cloth to give it kind of a sunset effect, but the cloth wasn't quite wide enough, so I hid the empty space with a pile of rocks I made for the sky below. Kind of like how I use self-deprecating comedy to hide my performance anxiety. Now, if they laugh at me, I can say it was on purpose. With the figures and set out of the way, it's time to work on the Scorpion. This thing needs some work before it can be useful to me. All relationships require change. You should always strive to be the best version of yourself. Okay, so the recoil on the barrel is a cool play feature, but it's impractical for animation. I'm going to disassemble the entire housing and rebuild it so I can just slide it back and forth. Shouldn't be too hard. Removing the rubber band isn't enough. It still wobbles up and down. Call that turret syndrome. I'm allowed to say that, by the way. So I need to put something over the top of the turret. First I put a tile on top of the barrel for a smooth surface. Then I put a bunch of wedges and tiles over the top to make it nice and sleek and streamlined. Is this even accurate to the in-game model? I have no idea. I don't look too closely at the vehicles when I'm playing Halo. I'm too busy getting 360 no-scopes and overkills. I'm very good at Halo. Okay, that was just a practice round, that didn't count.
Spartan.
Oh, shut up. I can get him. I can get him. I got him. I got him. I can get him. I can get him. It's a slow burn enemies to lovers dynamic. Now it's time to replace the joints on the tank treads. This set is built with axles that rotate loosely in pinholes, so I'm going to replace them with friction pins. So that means I also have to replace these axle holes with pinholes. New bottom surgery just dropped. Now it's time to replace the axles in every tread one at a time. I feel like I'm doing maintenance on a car, you know, changing the oil and replacing the headlight fluid and stuff like that. Maybe now my dad will love me. Alright, I'm going to blow up this tank. But I don't own any explosives because I'd probably forget I have them and level half my neighborhood. Instead, I'm going to break apart the second tank Mega sent me, then fill in all the gaps with a bunch of tubes and angled plates to make it look like exposed mechanics under crumpled armor. I also made a couple of extra bits and pieces to scatter around the battlefield. I made sure that I could pile all these bits on top of each other to form the vague shape of a tank. Next, I'm adding some weathering to the tank, as well as all the exploded tank bits. Just dry brushing though. The green is pretty dark already, so the black washing wouldn't make much difference. And it's already big enough to hold a lot of detail. And of course, I need to add the same weathering to all the exploded bits. Here I was finishing up the Netflix Resident Evil series. It made me sad. Leon, hi. I wrote you a story. Can I read it to you?
I'd rather not hear it.
Raiden from Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance held his sword ready and glared at the stranger. Who are you supposed to be? The handsome stranger tossed his gleaming hair back with a salacious wink. The name's Leon, he said.
Great.
Leon S. Kennedy from Resident Evil 4. That's some interesting hardware you got there. My cyborg body is outfitted with all the latest tech, Raiden from Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance said, including some non-combat upgrades for personal use. Leon S. Kennedy from Resident Evil 4 gave Raiden a flirtatious smirk and approached him while shrugging off his iconic bomber
I don't
cap.
ever remember being a part of your crappy script.
Now I'm going to make a tiny set of instructions so the Marine knows how to repair the tank, because his dad kept trying to teach him how to service a vehicle, but he just couldn't get it right because all the grease and oil and hot metal intimidated him, and he wasn't even strong enough to pry some of the bolts loose because he never played any sports despite being weirdly athletic as a kid, so instead he spent all his time building bionicles and playing Minecraft. So I scanned the instructions and then made a bunch of different sizes in a Photoshop document because I'm not sure what the scale is going to look like. I could have taken some measurements to calculate the exact size I need, but like, I went to art school so I can barely even count to 10 anymore. Wow. So I cut out the smallest cover and folded it in 2 places to form a spine, then cut out a bunch of pages and folded them in half. I had to test out this Gorilla Glue to make sure it works on paper, which feels like it should be obvious, but I've learned not to trust glue, because sometimes glue lies to you, and sometimes glue isn't as reliable as it says it is, and it always promises you can depend on it, but when it matters most it just doesn't stick around and everything falls apart. Okay, finished. Yeah, that looks great. Okay, so here's a fairly simple modification you can do to make your energy swords look a little bit more realistic. For example, here's the sword that came with the Scorpion Clash set. You can see the support in the middle between the blades. That's all a clear blue. You can pretty clearly see that. So if you have a Dremel, it's trivially easy to remove these. Anyway, in this case, I will be using the sword that came with the Yellow Elite Warlord in the Halo Heroes series. That's this dude here. I really like that it has the painted detail on the grip, so I will be cutting the support out of this one. Now, I think that Dremel is actually a brand name. You can get any kind of rotary tool and it'll work the same. Also, always remember to wear eye protection. I forgot once. Just once, but never again. Here's a safety tip. You should never use a Dremel on anything with hot glue on it. The friction will melt the hot glue, which will stick to the bit, and then due to centrifugal force, it will stretch into a spinning disc of white-hot death and flay the skin from your living bones. I like how that looks. That looks amazing. I love that. That's about finished. You can see there's still some plastic dust between the blades. It is flimsier now, but like, I don't mind. I'm a little more careful with my toys nowadays. If I break them, it's usually on purpose. I'll have to clean out the inside a little bit, but I think that looks much better. And with that, pre-production is complete. Now all that's left is to suffer a sudden depressive episode that delays animation for a few days because you got severely addicted to your only remaining source of consistent serotonin, which, to your eternal shame, is Genshin Impact.
Charlie.
Hello?
Charlie.
God?
Charlie, it's me. Leon S. Kennedy.
Leon S. Kennedy? From Resident Evil 4?
Listen, you have to finish this video.
But Leon, can't you see how depressed I am?
How else will you afford the Lim Toys 112 scale RPD officer Leon Kennedy from Resident Evil 2? Where's he going? Bingo?
As you watch this footage of me animating extremely fast in real time, allow me to read you the names of all the very fine people who have decided to financially support me on Patreon. AzgorhLegionary, Ellipsis, Lake Parker, Leah and Josh Caruso, Maskueradez. Oh, it says Maskueradez. Oh, that makes so much more sense now. Okay, Russ Bird, Tristan Vail, Gunnuts Films, Julie Garcia, Mike Dodge, Mitchell Kies, TheBohrokMan, Arboreal Squid, Awesomepants Films, Bohrok321, Darkseed Senpai, Darktomato, Jade Ceridwen, Mosha Manjaro, Peg Sullivan and Mike Bloom, Ree Man217, Rey Zephlyn, Sam Kim, Thewindyfan, Toa Ventron, and Vivian Cox. I'm told that all of these people are extremely morally upstanding and well-dressed. They also have access to rough cuts of videos, early completed videos, and an exclusive Discord chat. So why don't you do yourself and me a favor and join them? I really appreciate all the support. Thank you all, and farewell.
Charlie, it's me, Leon, your real dad, and I'm so proud of you. Charlie, it's me, Leon, your real dad, and I'm so proud of you. Charlie, it's me, Leon, your real dad, and I'm so proud of you. Charlie, it's me, Leon, your real dad, and I'm so proud of you.